Hmm. Oh, hello. I'm doing some painting, but I got some paint on my finger. Must have touched the wet paint, and now it's on my finger. That's made it worse. Oh well, I'll just keep going, because in our lesson today, we're looking at more of what comes out of which book of the Bible are we looking at? The first book. That's right, the first book, and it's the book of Jen. Do you remember what it is? Jen. Do you remember? Do you remember? Genesis. I'm sure you'll get it. Do you remember what it is now? No? Genesis. I've got an I. Do you remember? Oh, what is it? Do you remember what it is? Okay, last letter. I'm sure you're going to remember. It's the book of... What was that book called? What was it? It was Genesis, wasn't it? And in Genesis, we learnt that that God made absolutely everything, didn't he? Everything. All the things, the heavens and the earth. And everything was wonderful, wasn't it? It was beautiful. And then Adam and Eve were told not to eat from one tree in the garden. Do you remember what tree? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But last week we learnt that all this wonderful, beautiful things was all broken, wasn't it? That's right, all broken. And this beautiful, beautiful earth that God created was now a terrible, terrible mess. Oh dear. I didn't realise. Have I got it all over my face? Is that better? Does that look better? Oh dear. Now I've got it on my hands. Oh. Is that better? Is it all gone now? It's not better. It's all over my hands. Oh dear. I'm in a bit of a mess, aren't I? But you know what? In Genesis chapter 3, and from then on, the whole world was a bit of a mess. The whole world was a mess, including Adam and Eve, and then Cain and Abel that we heard about last week. So God had to punish Adam and Eve and sent them out of the garden where they couldn't eat from this tree.
That is your punishment. Now, go. Adam and Eve disobeyed God, and they were cast out of the Garden of Eden. They now had to work very hard to grow food. They had to build a house for shelter, and they eventually were going to die. They could have lived in the paradise forever if they had obeyed God's rule.
So this tree of life is the tree that they weren't allowed to eat from anymore because of sin. because they'd sinned, they disobeyed God, and they were all in a mess. And we are too, because we can't eat from that tree either. I'm feeling a bit grotty, so how about I just wipe myself clean, and then we can look at chapter 5. That's better. No more black. Yes? So, because we can't eat from the tree of life, that means that nobody has eternal life anymore. We all die. That's part of life, isn't it? And in Genesis chapter 5, that's what we read about. People are born and people die. But then in chapter 6, at the very start of chapter 6, we learn that people still were doing the wrong thing. They were still disobeying God. They were still sinful. And God said in Genesis chapter 6, verse 5, he says that the inclination and of humans was wicked, evil and wicked. So everyone was looking after themselves instead of loving God. That doesn't sound like a great plan, does it? Remember God's plan? This was all part of God's plan. Doesn't sound like a great plan. But we learn through the Bible that there was a comforter that was going to come. This comforter was going to come to rescue his people, to rescue us so that we can have eternal life. But it won't come from any of these people. And so the prophet Simeon in the New Testament, we hear about the prophet Simeon waiting for that comforter. God promised that he would see that comforter before he died. And so he was waiting to see the comforter. Who would this comforter be? Would it be a king? Would it be somebody riding on a white horse, a knight, to save his people? Would it be a doctor? Because they're comforters, aren't they? Would it be a doctor? No. When Simeon saw the comforter that had come, that God had promised, he was a little baby. He was a little baby that a man called Joseph and a lady called Mary had brought to the temple. And as soon as Simeon saw that baby, he rejoiced and he said, this is the person that's going to save the people, that's going to save them and give them eternal life. So who is this baby that's going to rescue us? Who is it that's going to give us eternal life? Do you know? I think you do. It's Jesus. J-E-S-U-S. Jesus. Jesus is the one that can give us eternal life. So we don't have to be messy anymore. We can follow him to have eternal life. See you next time, everyone.